Really quick, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone. Recently, the channel, we hit over 8,000 subscribers. I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're here, and I look forward to whatever the future holds on this channel, but I wanted to make sure that I took a moment just to say thank you.
Burn and brew with Coven, true and glorious shall be thine.
Hey friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I am a practicing witch, and I talk about it here on the internet. So if you're interested in all things witchcraft, maybe check out my channel, see if anything interests you, stick around if you want to, don't if you don't. If you are a returning subscriber, it's really good to see you back. Thank you so much for coming back and supporting me and this channel. Your support really means the world to me. In today's video, maybe we're going to be a little bit messy. Maybe we are going to spill some tea. Maybe we are going to kiki together, you and I. I posted on Facebook, and you may have seen this if we're connected on that social media platform. I posted a status where I kind of positioned the question about what are your witchcraft icks? Like, what gives you the ick? What's a red flag for you in terms of witchcraft? And let me just say that you guys did not disappoint. I really enjoy sort of posing these questions to like a wider audience every once in a while because I love hearing what you guys have to say. I love reading all of the comments, feedback, suggestions. So I would like to know, what are your biggest witchcraft icks? What are the biggest red flags for you within witchcraft spaces? Comment them down below. I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer before we get started here, in the fact that I am going to be sharing some of these comments and I am going to be responding to some of these comments. I did get a lot of comments on the original thread, so I don't know if I will be able to go through all of them, but I have kind of picked out ones that I think I have something to say about, for better or worse. And I do want to also say that when I am responding to any of these comments, if any of these are yours, or if we happen to have a differing opinion, I want you to know that my feedback and my response of these comments is in no way at all like any kind of attack on anyone's character or who they are as a person. We can actually hold completely different beliefs. And my hope is that we can have a respectful, albeit kind of maybe playful, like dialogue. But I think we need to have more conversations like this actually within the craft. That being said, I do hope that you don't necessarily take any offense to my playfulness or my commentary. However, I'm well aware that there are going to be people that are going to be offended by this video simply because I'm making this video. So blessed be. The first comment that I'm going to read you is from Ars Enodia. I despise gods taken out of cultural context and slapped on a Wiccan worldview. Witches who haven't deconstructed from their previous religions and pull into witchcraft. The false equivalence of practices like god spousing and the Akkadian priestesses, the blatant rewriting of Black and brown cultures, specifically ones that aren't around anymore. Star seeds, or any practice that stems from eugenics, and the lack of study to know that. Not knowing the linguistic or cultural etymology of words, rituals, symbols, or gods. The use of lineage as a vie for credibility without acknowledging the intentional destruction of family history for minority groups in the United States. The import of Hinduism from Blavatsky and the general misinterpretation of Hindu beliefs. Spreading misinformation to drive views and secure clients, blatant conflicts of interest, citing 30 years of practice to superimpose their UPG over research. Allowing UPG to stand over anything and not explaining when something is their UPG, or claiming that their tale is universal and the full truth. half research. For example, you may learn that some of the goetic spirits are older pagan gods, but then they claim they all are, putting practitioners in harm's way when they reach out to malevolent spirits. Worse yet, when they apply that demons are just older gods, logic to other cultures, and start worshiping Pazuzu for God's sake. Men, I am always suspect. Using spells out of 1,000 spells book without any auxiliary or further reading, and charging for readings while learning within weeks of picking up divination, tarot supremacy, and etc. Wow. Okay, this comment, there is a lot there, but I pretty much agree with all of that, I would say, R. Zenodia. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest comments on the thread, and I just really feel like you ate. I really feel like you popped off, and I completely agree. And I really don't even have a whole lot to add to this other than yes, yes. Next one is from Kitty Fields, the witch who has to constantly tell others that they are an elder. It's kind of like when men say that they're alpha males. If you have to say it, you're probably not. Completely agree with this as well. I definitely kind of follow the philosophy that a lion never has to convince you that it's not a lamb, okay? Excellence often moves in silence, and when you really are that girl, people know that you are that girl based off of the vibes. Like, that's all there is to it. So if you have to walk into a room and assert yourself as the biggest and the baddest in Boone County, it's a little cringe. I agree. It kind of gives me the ick as well. Also, the whole aspect of elder, I feel like I could go off on like a full tangent about that because there's a couple of points here, couple of bullet points. One, being over the age of, let's say, 65 within the craft, to me does not necessarily just grant you the title of elder. Also, I think for most witches who are practicing solitary or outside of any sort of initiatory tradition, what really is elder in that case? Elders tend to exist within, sure, you could say the wider communities, like maybe influential people of the past, but also if you are not in a particular tradition, like who are your elders? Like Kitty said, if you have to say it, you're not. Charity says, saying that intent is everything. Yeah, I completely agree. This is also, I don't know if it's necessarily like a red flag for me, but to me, it does speak a little bit to like a lack of experience within the craft. Because yeah, I don't think that intent is everything. I can intend to make a cheesecake, but if I am baking with supplies that I would use to make a chicken white chili, I don't think it's going to turn out like a cheesecake regardless of what I intended. Also, I feel like this could go into a conversation about like the toxic positivity culture, because I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've had a conversation maybe with a friend and you voiced that, hey, when you said XYZ, it bothered me and it made me feel like blah, blah, blah. And then that friend then turns around and says, well, that wasn't my intention. Okay, well, that might not have been your intention, and that's valid, but it still hurt someone's feelings. So intent is absolutely important, and I think that it's fundamental and definitely a building block of good spellcraft and witchery, but saying that intent is absolutely everything, I think really throws to the wayside everything else that witchcraft is about. In my opinion, it's just lazy magic, really. Next one is really good, and it's from Jim. Claiming an unbroken witchcraft bloodline pre-Gardner, and then thrusting one's ancestors upon the entire group. Look, here's the thing. Those of you who have followed my channel for a while probably already know this. I love the whole fantasy of the witch cult of Western Europe. I love the fantasy of that. I love the lore of that. I think that's so fun. But I do think that, like, let's be a little bit realistic here. Let's grow up and let's really just be authentic. And I think that right now, in the year of our Dark Lord, 2025, when I am filming this, I think that we are experiencing this sort of shift within the wider witchcraft movement, especially within initiatory witchcraft spaces where people aren't fabricating. Well, I should say it's falling out of favor. It's becoming less popular. Let me not say people aren't, because we know that there are people that still do this, but it's becoming less common for people to like fabricate these crazy lore backstories of what makes them the grand high, most high, supreme this, of that. And people are really just kind of stepping in and starting their own sort of like neo-traditions or directly citing sources, which is always good. But the people that are claiming to practice an unbroken line of witchcraft, and I also do kind of get the ick when people like bring in like their ancestry into this, like, oh, my family has been practicing this unbroken line of magic since pre-Christian times. Probably not. Probably not. And also, probably some of those ancestors were actually very devout in their Abrahamic faiths, and maybe some of them throughout the years practice aspects of folk magic. And if you go back far enough, theoretically, at one point, a bunch of our ancestors were pre-Abrahamic. Way, 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 way back. But I think the legitimacy that people think this sort of claim brings is really falsified and not important and doesn't do what I think they think it does for them. Stephen Cruz says, people saying that you can't do this or that because of a law within their craft, or people that claim they are all powerful and get testy when you say prove it. Or people saying that they have an active power and then they can't prove it. When it comes to this, I think people saying that you can't do this or that because of a law in their craft is really just giving a lot of dogma. And unless you are part of a specific tradition, I don't really know why people think that dogma is relevant to the conversation, because it's comparing apples to oranges. If we are not even practicing the same tradition of witchcraft, then, you know, the laws, the guidelines, the rules, whatever that one witch might follow is really completely null and void to the next witch if they're not within the same tradition. And I think this could lean into a bigger conversation about how witchcraft, like in general, has kind of become this really big umbrella term that I think some people include other magical practices in that's kind of unfounded, because I think witchcraft is more than just magic. Like, I think that there can be multiple different magical systems that can all be magic, but it doesn't make all of it witchcraft. Like, Santeria is not witchcraft. Like, hoodoo, voodoo, not witchcraft. Feng shui, not really witchcraft. Do you get where I'm going with this? So any rules or guidelines or customs for one group doesn't necessarily translate over to the next. And I also think that most modern witches, because so many of us are solitary, or because so many of us are simply practicing folk magic, you can't really lay like a super clear line in the sand to throw your dogma on either side of. I think that those conversations are better held within specific covens or traditions of this is how we do XYZ. But not from a place of like, let's try to control how other people are practicing, but more so if you're trying to keep your practice in line with a specific tradition, these are the ways that we do it. Does that make sense? And then the whole like proving power thing, I think this kind of again goes back to like a lion does not need to convince you that they're not a lamb, like period. When you're that girl and you walk in the room, people know that you're that girl because you're the girl. Period. This next one is kind of a longer one as well, and it's from Cora. Any sort of gatekeeping, telling you that the way you worship is wrong, like the relationship that you have with a certain deity is incorrect or not what they think the relationship should be. More personal red flag is like the gendered gatekeeping and then complaining when not allowed into gate-kept people's areas or witchcraft. I actually think that gatekeeping really does have a place within the craft. And again, for me, this kind of goes back to like specific initiatory traditions that are gatekept because they are inherently initiatory. And I don't think that that's a dirty thing. And I don't think that that's problematic. And I've talked about that here on my channel before. And I've kind of used like the metaphor of a neighborhood. If witchcraft is like this housing edition and there's a bunch of solitary witches and folk witches and what have you that, you know, live in this neighborhood and they have their own houses. And then there are traditions houses, like different covens and what have you. If you do not have a key to someone's house, typically you cannot just like walk in. And even then, it's kind of polite to announce yourself and get permission, even once you've been given a key. So for a solitary practitioner, if you don't want to gatekeep your own practice, if you want to keep your front doors unlocked, and if you want to invite anybody and everybody into your sacred space, baby, you are more than welcome to do so, and blessed be. But to expect that out of other people, even other solitary practitioners, is problematic in my opinion. And to expect that out of traditions, to just have access to those spaces when permission has not been granted, it's giving colonizer mentality, it's giving entitlement, and it's giving me ick. So I think that gatekeeping, sure, I mean, can be toxic, right? Like the whole you can't sit with us kind of thing. But for the most part, like I don't really think that that's what's going on. I mean, other people's experiences are valid. I'm not saying that my experience is like the ultimate authority, of course, but I don't tend to see gatekeeping really done in that way. I see traditions saying that this is a closed practice, and I think that there's nothing wrong with being respectful of that. This comment also kind of goes into some other conversation, so I'm going to just kind of stop it there and move on to the next one. The next commenter. Ah, yes, the lightworker agenda is probably every gray witch's worst nightmare. I agree that it's redundant and defies nature itself. And then the egomaniacs that spew more nonsense than knowledge, and their version of daily crafting is to get on social media and tell people they're doing things wrong. LOL. I mean, yeah, the light worker thing, huge red flag, also kind of a white supremacist dog whistle. And the whole idea of like spiritual ascension also just kind of gives me the ick. It implies that there's a hierarchy of people within magic. And again, kind of like gatekeeping, I think that hierarchy within traditions and organized group structures serves a purpose. But in the wider scale of magic, even outside of witchcraft, really just gives like elitist vibes, and it gives me the ick. And unfortunately, within magical spaces, not necessarily just witchcraft, narcissists and their ego very much do run wild, and they are inflated on social media, and they very much perceive their social media following as if some sort of worth or validity like indicator. Also, big ick. Next commenter, Michelle, so sweet. They said, in all honesty, I cannot be a judge or have a red flag or a green flag for anyone's particular path that they have chosen. It is not my job while on this earth to have judgment for how someone else sees or believes. Respectfully, Michelle, I adore you, love you. This is such a pageant queen kind of answer. And I agree, like, to each their own. But this particular thread, we are talking about the red flags, and we are talking about what gives us the personal ick. And all of us have it. Let's be totally real. All of us have it. I know we all say, well, who are we to judge? Well, I'm actually a Libra. So like astrologically speaking, I am quite literally blessed with the divine scales of beauty, grace, and judgment. No, for real. All of us do judge, and all of us should practice a sense of discernment. And when you are in magical spaces, you need to really hone your skill of magical discernment, because not everybody is going to be for you. And some people are actually dangerous to your well-being and can be a detriment to your practice. So being able to pick up on white supremacy dog whistles or red flags or just personal icks, like I think we should normalize the fact that we don't necessarily have to like everyone. Like, I can absolutely support you as a human being and support the idea of human rights and fight for those causes, but it doesn't mean that we have to like get coffee together. Like, I can believe that you have a right to housing and universal health care and the pursuit of happiness, but it doesn't mean that I necessarily like want to hang out with you. I think we should normalize people having their preferences. And also, we don't all need to sit around and sing Kumbaya. I think that's okay too. Maybe that's an ick for some of you, and that's okay. This next comment from David kind of does speak to an earlier comment, but I'm going to bring it up here. My biggest ick is when someone decides that intention is everything and chooses not to do the work. Like, no, just because you found a spell on Pinterest or made one up yourself doesn't make you a witch. You need to put the work in, you need to practice, make mistakes, and keep going. I hate that a lot of people just want instant gratification and things handed to them. The last part of this, I don't know. I mean, I do love a little instant gratification. I do love ease of access. I do love a microwavable meal. You know what I mean? We're living in the year of our Lord, 2025. That is a privilege that we have now. But I do agree that intention is not everything. And witchcraft, to me, being a witch is a noun. It's who we are fundamentally. You know, it's who we are. It's a noun, but it is also a verb in the sense that it's what we do, and it's who we are because it's what we do. So they kind of like go hand in hand, and maybe some of like the English major girlies here in the chat can explain this better than I am. I'm definitely no English major. Y'all know that. I'd be pronouncing things crazy, and it's my first language, and I still be struggling with it sometimes. But hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, overall with this comment, I would agree. This next comment from Raven, the rule of three, ick, absolutely. Telling others how to worship deities, that one's kind of a gray area for me. I think that like unsolicited advice is always really tacky. However, I do think that like, again, kind of like when we were talking about like within specific traditions, like if you are a member of clergy of a specific body of a deity, yeah, there probably are going to be like general guidelines of how that body of clergy is to operate. But like within the craft, there isn't really, again, unless you're a part of a specific tradition, there isn't really a governing body of clergy. So like technically you can do whatever the hell you want to do. Like that's totally fine. If you want to associate the colors, I don't know, green and purple with Aries and offer him flowers and whatever else, like I can't really think of a good example right now, but like if you want to offer non-traditional correspondences to a particular deity or spirit, that's really none of my business at the end of the day, is how I feel about that. Wicca in general is a red flag. Honestly, I kind of disagree with this. I think that eclectic Wicca specifically, like Wicca was never really meant to be that to begin with. And I actually think that like as an American traditional folkloric witch, I think that I actually have a lot more in common with Wiccans, with Gardnerians and Alexandrians than some might think. So I don't necessarily think that Wicca as a whole is necessarily a red flag. Using the chakras when they are not Hindu. Yeah, this is just really tacky, and it's giving like colonizer, it's giving appropriation, and it's, again, it's, to me, that's not witchcraft. Chakras are not witchcraft. Same with using white sage, like, still, yeah, I agree. Not being open-minded to other people's UPG. I agree with this, like, in theory, but again, like, unsolicited advice is always kind of tacky. And kind of like Arzanodia commented earlier, like when people throw their UPG out as if it's law without the indicator that it's UPG, but just kind of pass it off as it's some kind of law that you should be following. Yeah, I think that's kind of tacky. I do think that like witchcraft and the spirit of craft evolves, and all of us as witches kind of pour into the collective wellspring. So the way that that evolves is by other witches pouring their red soul, their blood, their UPG into that wellspring to grow the spirit of craft over time. But I feel like that's kind of different than just putting your UPG out there as if it's some kind of law. I do think that all of us should be open to hearing other people's perspectives and points of view, even if it's UPG and even if you completely disagree with it. Because it's kind of like when you read a book that you don't like, it reinforces and educates you about your own perspective of why you don't agree with that author or what you don't like about that book. And I think the same can be said for listening to other practitioners' UPG. Like, even if you don't agree with it, it can solidify what you do believe, if that makes sense. The transphobic rhetoric and only two gender rhetoric, yeah, like I kind of feel like there has been a time and space for binary-centered fertility magic, and if that is your thing, like, you go right ahead. But again, like, taking that rhetoric and imposing it on other practitioners, trying to sort of validate or invalidate people's practices from your personal fertility perspective is just tacky, it's just gross, and magic can be so much more than the correspondences of male, female, masculine, feminine. And I think to only look at magic that way, in my opinion, okay, is lazy. This next one from Sierra. Witches who work with Lilith but strictly view her as a girl boss feminist icon and don't understand her lore or that she's also a demon. LOL. I think the version of Lilith is actually an egregore, or people who deduce that all witchcraft fits into the left-hand path, right-hand path. I think it can be useful to describe certain things, but a lot of people just use it to rebrand the whole white versus black magic thing. Yes. All of that, yes. Lilith, in particular, is such a fascinating archetype, spirit, goddess, demon, because she is all of these things. And I agree. I think that just taking the girl boss feminist icon aspect of her, which I do love and I'm so here for, is not the complete version of her. There is a book by Michael Herkis, The Greater Lilithian Arcane Mysteries, that I feel like does a really phenomenal job demonstrating the different aspects of Lilith, both as a sort of spirit and of like air and storms, also as like a goddess. You think that the more satanic view of like Lilith as in like the mother of abominations is also beautiful. Like I think Lilith can be all of those things because she's multifaceted just like any other modern woman is. Like none of us are just one thing, you know? And yeah, like the whole left-hand path versus right-hand path, I think a lot of people, especially here in the West, actually have a huge misunderstanding of what the left-hand path and right-hand path even is. And I think people just kind of equate that to good and evil, right and wrong, white and black. I've done a whole video here on my channel talking about my views of the left-hand path and the downfallings and the shortcomings of the left-hand path. If you are interested, you can find that on my channel. But yeah, Sierra, completely agree. This next one from Lamia, I'm going to pluck just a part of this out because some of these we've already talked about. But Lamia says, someone saying something like, you shouldn't cast curses because it will come back to you, even if you don't believe in it, is a major ick for me. It's no different than browbeating with religion's dogma. I also completely agree with this. And here's the thing, witchcraft, like I said, it's who we are as witches, and it's also what we do as witches. It's both a noun and a verb. And I think historically and folklorically, witches have often been on the fringes of society, have represented the taboo, the profane, or the perverse. And also, as witches, we've often worked with, alongside, and for the downtrodden, the oppressed, and the marginalized. Meaning, witchcraft is inherently political, even from like the modern feminist icon of the image of a witch and taking that on as a way to identify yourself and empower yourself. People do that. And to negate it all just by saying, oh, like, you know, when you
rule of three and what comes back to you and beep.
it's lazy to me. It's colonizer to me. And also it kind of takes away the conversation about perception. And like Morticia, our great queen, okay, Morticia Adams, she's like, what is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly. What is a horrible, malevolent working to you could be justice to me. And also, I don't remember asking you your opinion about what the fuck I'm doing, of whether you think it's vengeance or justice. What I do see is a lot of witches sitting on their ass and not doing shit for either vengeance or justice. So why don't we worry about that? This next one from Jamie. For me, a peeve is when I see people posting pictures of their active magical spells online. I can literally feel the energy coming from them, and if I wanted to, I could pull from it. I absolutely do not and would not, but if I can feel it and do so if I wanted to, so can other witches, and they may have no issues about it. That falls into the to keep silent adage so many witches do not practice nowadays. I'm going to say agree, but also disagree respectfully, Jamie, with this. Personally, myself, I have posted many an active spell here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. I use my own discernment about what and when I'm posting where. And if I'm sharing it, it's probably because I want people to see it. Also, the way that spells can be woven, there can be kind of cautions thrown in there for people that might attempt to interrupt the weave. And there's also something to be said about the energetic vampirism of other people's attention that is giving it to the work. By you watching, engaging, and seeing and looking at an image or a spell or a sigil or what have you, I believe that is also empowering it as well. When people share things on social media, think about it. But I do agree, like the to keep silent aspect of the witch's pyramid, to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent, for some to go. I think that it is important. And I think that not everything needs to be public all of the time, and some things should not be shared publicly. So I would say, I would add on to this that for the most part, I agree. But I don't think I believe in a blanket statement of no active magical spells or rituals posted online at any point in time. I do think that that's a little bit fear-mongery of like this boogeyman that's going to see your spell and that's going to unravel it. I think that that's less common than other people unintentionally empowering it by sharing it, commenting on it, or giving it attention. Also, I think any witch worth their salt, if they're going to be doing some kind of work that they're going to be posting on the internet, I'm sure there's probably aspects of it that are kept off the internet as well, or protections and sort of booby traps, if you will, that are put in place for those that might seek to intercept it. Liz says, there seems to be at least one tradition that teaches, or at least implies, that you should be a bitchy queen to anyone with a different opinion. I've seen it several times with guilty parties quoting writings from obscure authors. We don't need to be enemies. I would agree with this. I think that there are, especially amongst initiatory groups, there are a lot of bitchy queens. There are a lot of people that think that their degrees and their titles and their initiations, again, this kind of goes back into elitism, somehow makes them more worthy, more valid, more important, more deserving of basic respect. And I think that that's really tacky. But I also think that as witches, and I'm not talking about any other magical groupings. We're not talking about the shamans. We're not talking about the druids. We're not talking about the X, the Y, or the Z. We're talking about witches. I think we're kind of a bit feral. And I think we're supposed to be. Like, I think that the witchcraft revival sort of movement that was taking place throughout the 60s, 70s, up through the 90s, it was a lot of like watering down and diluting the craft for the sake of normalizing it, decriminalizing it, making it more socially acceptable. And with that, we kind of lost like the hag archetype of witches. We kind of lost the teeth and the claw of witchery. And I think that's really important to bring back. So I don't think it's good to necessarily you know, be a bitchy queen in the sense of being toxic and nasty and asserting dominance and authority over other people and just being tacky. But I do think that sometimes witches, their experience, their knowledge, their wisdom, their background, whatever, is perceived as an immediate threat by other witches because we are just kind of feral in nature. Leah says, people evading the significance of closed traditions and religions by talking over the people from that tradition and dismissing them as being divisive, entitled gatekeepers, all while simultaneously giving incorrect information to random people asking about that said religion. I once observed a white woman tell someone to contact Papa Legba and ask him to invite them into that tradition because apparently that is how she did it. Meanwhile, she said, but he has a reputation, so just be respectful. He likes offerings of booze, but if you don't have any or offer it, it's okay. Like, girl, what? Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. All of this is tea. I completely agree with everything that Leah said. Some folks, listen, not everything is for you, and that's okay. Stay in your own lane. It's free. John says, calling someone a baby witch makes me cringe. It makes me cringe too, especially because typically, like, we're all adults here. You're a baby nothing. First of all, you're an adult. And I think that it's damaging on both sides because on the one side, it's infantilizing the other person and kind of taking power actually out of their hands. And on the other hand, it's kind of learned helplessness, isn't it? Because how many of us that are in witchcraft groups online see the same people running around with an absolute magical emergency crisis at least once a week?
Oh no, please help me. I'm just small girl. I'm baby witch.
It's giving attention seeking, it's giving desperation, it's giving boredom, it's giving go touch some grass. Aggie says, when someone rattles on about free will, like seriously, almost everything any witch does is going to impose on someone's free will. If I wanted chains, I would be part of the church. I also agree with this. I don't even know that I have anything to add to this one because, yeah, period. Koshi says old cishet dudes who encourage lots of younger women to join their group. Yeah, that's gross. It's giving like very tacky, very vintage, like fertility cult. And I think that that's a glaring red flag. Absolutely. Groups with lots and lots of very specific rules or think that there's only one right way to do the craft. Yeah, I mean, also don't join those groups. If a group has a system of rules and rituals, if a group has a system of rules and rites and rituals, and you don't want to follow those, I would not join that group. Groups that are much larger than 10 or 15 members who are all expected to trust one another intimately, I absolutely agree. I think that that's a red flag as well. I think really not to like get into the Margaret Murray fantasy of the witch cult of Western Europe of it all, but like really any number higher than 13, it's kind of becoming a congregation at that point, isn't it? And I don't think that's how covens are really intended to operate. I think a really good number for a coven that I have experienced is between like 5 and maybe 9. Like somewhere in there feels really good, feels really manageable. It keeps the group smaller, so a sense of shared intimacy is kind of more natural and doesn't feel as forced. And it's also a lot easier to work with people that you have that shared intimacy with in the capacity of initiatory covenry. I will also say, like, as a priestess, it is a lot easier to manage other priestesses as a high priestess in a smaller group. To be able to make sure that every priestess's voice, every witch's voice is heard and seen, and their needs within the coven are being met, and everyone has a ritual role, because I find that to be really important to the type of initiatory witchcraft that I am in, you are not coming to an American traditional folkloric witchcraft ritual with the intention of just watching the high priestess perform the ritual. You are coming to directly engage in the ritual, and all of the initiated members are going to have a role and a responsibility in that ritual. The responsibility is not just going to be carried by one person. And also, if you want to go and witness your religion, go to church, right? Groups that insist on ritual nudity or hyper emphasize sex magic. I think that this can be toxic. I think that this can be problematic for sure. I think that goes without being said. Again, I would take this back to if there is a coven or a group that practices skyclad and has that as a bylaw of their coven, you should not join that coven if you're not comfortable with it. I don't think that you should superimpose your personal comfort level of skyclad rights on the group and say, well, you don't want to do that, so the group needs to be able to bend their laws to fit your needs. You need to find a different group, is what it is. And the same, I think, goes with sex magic. Now, this can go in ways of consent. It shouldn't just be sprung upon somebody. And I'm not necessarily trying to defend fertility cults. I'm not even really in a fertility cult. I would consider us to be more of a mystery cult. But when it comes to sex magic, again, like if that's not something that you're not comfortable participating in, don't. And if other people are making you feel like you have to, that's predatory and that's problematic. Isaac says, when an armchair witch claims to be an actual practitioner but has no lived experiences with rituals, spells, etc. I completely agree. I think that to know being the first pillar is really important. To know thyself, to know thy craft, to always be reading and learning. Like, yes, all of those things are very important. But at some point, we have to move into to dare and to will. We have to get up off the armchair. We have to go apply what we've learned, because that's how we generate wisdom. There's a difference there between knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom comes from the experience of applied knowledge. It's not just inherently found within a book. Reading doesn't even make you wise, it makes you knowledgeable. So know that. And yeah, get up off your ass and work. Like, period. Tristan says, cultural appropriation and clothes practices. I mean, I'm sorry, but if I want to try a method on for size, I dare somebody to try and fucking stop me. I don't give a fuck. If I can think, dream, or look it up, I can try it if I want to. Besides, my practice isn't public, so no one will ever know what dibbles I have dabbled in the first place. But also, if this closed practice looks identical to this other open practice, and this culture coincidentally mirrors several others from around the world, then the common threads of belief and practice are interwoven with time and mere existence. But it feels like I'm the only one willing to stop drawing lines in the sand between things that so readily blur themselves together. I just don't get it, so I don't participate in that mindset. Tristan, I'm going to disagree here with you, honey. Cultural appropriation and closed practices are a thing, and it's perfectly fine that you don't get it. It's not meant for you to get, right? So that's okay. Also, yeah, no one can really police you and stop you from doing something. Yeah, you're right. You can do whatever you want to do, and you do that. Blessed be. Xavier says, love and gaslighters make my ass itch. Yes. People that call it black or white magic. Yes. I've made a video about that whole topic here on my channel if you're interested. When they don't actually know what karma is and use it to police other people's magic. Yes. And I would even say this, and I think this might even be controversial within the Western witchcraft world, but I don't even think karma is a part of witchcraft. Like, what? Also, the amount of people that preach on karma, that stand up on their soapbox and preach on karma but can't even spell dharma, baby, put it down. That's not for you. Xavier says, I couldn't give a threefold fuck of a fuck about the threefold law. period. Hope that you will have enjoyed this video. Again, I would love to hear like what red flags or icks that you might have in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this video and I will keep making similar ones like this. Let me know what green flags you have within the craft, because that's a video I would really like to make as well. So anyways, I think that's going to wrap up this video. I'm sure this is going to be so fun to edit. And again, for everybody watching, please know that there is no disrespect sent to any of these individual people. Do not go around harassing or bullying people either. Knock that shit off. It's ugly. Do believe in having open dialogues and transparent conversations. I appreciate everyone who left these comments that I have made responds on. And yeah, until next time, blessed be, and I will see you all in hell. Bye.
Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Circle sewn with fate, unlock thy hidden